The night everything broke was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the night I lost everything, and the night I unknowingly began building it all back. I still remember the way the chandelier sparkled above the dining table. Crystal glasses, polished silverware, a house so big it didn't feel real. This was the home of the Whitmore family, wealthy, respected, and admired across London. And that night, I was sitting at their table, as their guest, as their future son-in-law. Or at least, that's what I thought. "Daniel, pass the wine, Mr. Whitmore said, barely looking at me. I quickly reached for the bottle, trying not to spill a drop. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me. Judging, measuring, waiting. Across the table sat Emily Whitmore, my fiancée. The woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. She smiled at me softly, but there was tension in her eyes. Like she knew something I didn't. "So, Mrs. Whitmore said, placing her fork down with a sharp clink, tell us again what your mother does." The question wasn't new, but the tone was. I swallowed. "She works as a cleaner, at a hotel," I replied. Silence filled the room. Then, a laugh. Cold, sharp, unapologetic. "A cleaner," Mrs. Whitmore repeated, as if the word itself offended her. Mr. Whitmore leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Incredible," he muttered. "Emily, is this really the kind of family you want to marry into?" My chest tightened. I glanced at Emily. She didn't speak. "My mother is an honest woman," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She worked her whole life to raise me. And yet," Mrs. Whitmore interrupted, "you still came from nothing." The words hit harder than anything I'd ever heard. Nothing. That's what they thought of us. Mr. Whitmore leaned forward, his voice calm but cruel. "Let's be honest, Daniel. People like you don't belong in places like this." I felt something inside me crack. "And what exactly are people like me?" I asked quietly. He smiled. "Trash." The word echoed in my head. Trash. I looked at Emily again. Waiting, hoping, begging for her to say something. Anything. But she just looked down. Silent. And in that moment, I understood everything. I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "You're right," I said. They all looked at me. Surprised. "I don't belong here." I took off the engagement ring and placed it gently on the table. Right next to the crystal glass. Emily's eyes widened. "Daniel, wait." But I didn't. I couldn't. I walked out of that mansion with nothing. No pride, no future, just pain, and a promise. I would never feel that small again. 10 years later, London hadn't changed, but I had. The boy they called trash was gone. In his place stood a man who had built everything from the ground up. It wasn't easy. There were nights I slept in my car. Days I worked 3 jobs. Moments I almost gave up. But every time I felt like quitting, I remembered that word, trash, and it pushed me forward. I started small, a cleaning business, just me and my mother. 2 people, 1 dream. We worked harder than anyone else. Longer hours, better service, no excuses. Slowly, clients came, then more, then bigger ones. Hotels, corporate buildings, luxury properties. Within 5 years, we weren't just cleaning spaces. We were managing them, owning them. By year 10, everything had changed. "Sir, the final documents are ready for signature," my assistant said, placing a folder on my desk. I looked down at the papers. Then at the name written across the top. Whitmore Estate. I almost laughed. Life had a strange sense of humor. "Schedule the meeting," I said calmly. A week later, I stood in front of the same mansion I once walked away from. But this time, I wasn't a guest. I was the buyer. The gates opened slowly, just like they did 10 years ago. But everything felt different. I walked inside. The same chandelier, the same table, the same cold elegance. And then, I saw them, Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, older now, less confident, less powerful, and beside them, Emily. Our eyes met. For a moment, time froze. "Daniel," she whispered, but I didn't respond. Not yet. We sat at the table. The same table where everything once fell apart. "This is unexpected, Mr. Whitmore said, clearing his throat. I nodded. "Life is." Mrs. Whitmore forced a smile. "We didn't realize the buyer was you." "I'm sure you didn't," I replied. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Finally, Mr. Whitmore spoke. "Well, let's not dwell on the past. Business is business." I looked at him. really looked at him. This was the man who once called me trash. Funny, I said, because last time I was here, it wasn't about business. No one spoke. I leaned forward slightly. My mother still remembers this house, I continued. She used to clean places like this. Mrs. Whitmore shifted in her seat. And now, I said softly, now I own it. The words hung in the air. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I paused. For a moment, I saw the past. The love, the memories, but then I remembered the silence. You should be, I said. I signed the papers, and just like that, it was done. The mansion was mine. As I stood to leave, I turned back one last time. You called us trash, I said calmly. They didn't respond. But here's the thing, I continued. Trash doesn't build empires. I walked out, not angry, not bitter, just free. Epilogue. A few months later, the mansion was transformed, renovated, reimagined, but one thing stayed the same. At the entrance, near the front gate, I placed a small plaque. Not for them, but for her, for the woman who cleaned the floors, and taught me how to rise. My mother stood beside me as we unveiled it. Tears in her eyes, pride in her smile, and in that moment, I realized something. Success isn't about revenge, it's about proving to yourself that you were never what they called you.